Guys, welcome back to Between the Ropes TV, and also welcome back to myself, who obviously has been gone for over a week due to holidays. Hopefully, I'm looking a bit more tanned, a bit more, vibrant. Guys, how are we doing?
No, I'm going to be brutally honest here, Scott. You don't look tanned. Your hairline looks like it's receded a few centimetres.
Probably is.
And you've fully took the absolute piss, mate. But yeah, glad to have you back, I suppose we should be saying.
We've had more views without you, so I'm not really sure if I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know why you asked me. To come on and do this, lads, because you might have. I was a bit, wary that I might have been given the boot, but of course I haven't been. So we are going to jump into the good old Canelo Plant preview. It's a big fight, isn't it? Next week. I mean, what more could you say about both these fighters, really? I mean, starting with Canelo, his only loss has come to probably one of the greatest boxers of all time, in Mr. Money Mayweather, and of course that was much earlier in his career as well. And Plant, to be fair to him, 21 wins so far, no losses. Obviously so far so good in terms of that unbeaten record. Josh, I think a lot of people are going to expect it to be a case that his unbeaten record will, inevitably go though up against Canelo. Do you reckon that's fair to say? Are you predicting a Canelo win, or is there more to this? Because I think, there does seem to be more people as the fight gets closer, a bit like the Fury Wilder fight a few weeks ago, where people are more starting to back Plant, aren't they? But I don't know whether that's just wanting to be a bit edgy or what.
No, I think there is a slight argument, I think, for Plant. I don't think it's as big as straightforward as it perhaps we all thought originally. As you just said, Plant's coming into this 21-0, 12 stoppages. And you could argue, he's a couple of years younger than Canelo. He has got the height and reach advantage. Canelo's 5'8", Plant's 6'1". He's got 3.5 inch reach advantage. So there are arguments that you can possibly make for Caleb Plant. Linked with obviously the less fights being fresher. Canelo now, he's 31 years old. But, he's had 59 pro fights, started at 15. Although he's got access to the best facilities in the world, he's the wear and tear. So, and that's the sort of stuff that, Plant fans are going to be saying. But, you look into Caleb Plant's record for me. Yes, he's undefeated. But, he's had 4 world title fights. Canelo's a 4-weight world champion. So, he matches him for divisions as well, title fights. Obviously, this will be his 5th. And, his biggest record, really, Caleb Truax, Jose, I think I've got it right, Uzcategui. I don't know. I remember seeing, a lot about him a couple of years ago as the sort of heir apparent to the super middleweight division. There's a lot of talk of him and David Benavidez. And obviously, he's not quite came to it. But I think overall, have a look on BoxRec. And he's the 3rd best super middleweight in America behind Danny Jacobs and Jesse Hart. And I think that tells us quite a lot here, Then you switch over to Canelo, 56 wins. Obviously, the sole defeat, which, best boxer of our generation or possibly ever. And obviously, he's had a couple of draws. 4-weight world champion. And it's the resume. We mentioned this last week in our pound for pound video. Kovalev, Golovkin, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Danny Jacobs, Liam Smith, Amir Khan, Miguel Cotto, Lara, Shane Mosley. It's literally, you look down his resume and it's like a who's who of boxing, really. And from light middleweight straight through to light heavyweight. And that's the impressive bit for me. Sometimes you'll get lower down, you'll get 4-weight, well, probably not 4-weight, but you'll get multiple weights, but you're talking like 118 pounds to 122 pounds up. Canelo's gone from 154 to 175. The spectrum of the weight that he's covered, the net, and he's got more to do at light heavyweight if he wanted to, but I'll be honest, I think that's what we're going to be seeing after this fight.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, though, haven't you, Josh? The fact that I think at the start, one of the main things that people are going to say about Plant is the fact of he's got the height advantage and reach advantage as well. But this is nothing new, is it? This is nothing new for Canelo. He's gone up the weight. He's gone up weights and done that before. It's not the first time he's going to be facing an opponent much bigger than him, is it?
No, he's used to fighting the bigger men. And, you look at his training team. For me, Eddie Reynoso, probably the best coach on the planet right now today. In his camp, Ryan Garcia, I know there's been a lot of talk, possibly friction there, but he's still a good young fighter who will keep a veteran on his toes and keep him hungry. Oscar Valdez, multiple weight world champion. Andy Ruiz, obviously, we all know his background. Yeah. I've read some stats. I think Reynoso is currently working with sort of 8 world champions. He's trained Canelo since he was 13 years old. So, they know each other inside out. They know how to get the best results. They're making history. That's what they've done. I don't want to sound like a fanboy. I know we try and keep these previews relatively sort of balanced, but while I'm really impressed with Plant, I think Canelo stops him within 6 rounds.
Well, I mean, let's see if Ben is going to maybe try and balance it out. It's an interesting one, though, isn't it? Because as we've said before, it looks like Plant is getting a few more supporters. I think, obviously, those over in the States more so are going to perhaps be backing their man. I wonder if over in Europe as well, you have to consider it. And did Canelo maybe lose a few fans, not through anything he's done, but I know that there was a lot of people that felt Golovkin was perhaps unfairly done, not in just the one fight, but both of those fights. So maybe that's why people are calling for Plant a bit more. But Ben, how do you see this one going? Are you, in all honesty, you just are you going to have to back what Josh is saying? Well, obviously on previews before, we've seen a bit of a to and fro in between you two, but I have a feeling this one probably isn't going to be the case, is it?
Well, let's go back to first what you're saying about Golovkin. And I get what you're saying. He might have lost fans there. But I'll say one thing. Since the Golovkin fights, he's only gained those fans back with what he's done. Because he's gone and he fights unbeaten world champions. He takes their belts. He takes their unbeaten title. And he moves on to the next in quick fashion. You look what he's done in the last year. He just with Smith and Billy Joe Saunders. And then he had Yildirim in there as well. And I just think he just keeps marching forward and marching on and marching through his opponents. But
you're right with that. But I was just making sure I'm completely right looking at BoxRec. Since the Golovkin fights, obviously, Billy Joe Saunders that you mentioned, Callum Smith.
More champions.
Any opponent that he did maybe lose, anyone that lost maybe wasn't a fan of him due to the fact of the way the Golovkin decision goes. I think you make a very fair point that he's only going to back it up further. So I'm guessing you are maybe thinking that this is going to be, the usual repeats itself, or are you giving Plant a bit more of a shot?
Well, if you watched our pound for pound video, I said that he is pound for pound number 1. It's the only spot for me you can't argue with. And I think he's going to nothing against Plant. I think Plant's a good fighter. He's got good head movement, his reactions. But when it comes to Canelo, he's got that experience. This is going to be Plant's first pay-per-view. I know pay-per-views aren't everything, but Canelo's used to carrying the whole cards. He's done the lot, and I can't see him losing. I think at this weight, I don't think anyone beats him. He has the right game plan. He doesn't always win the rounds, but when he doesn't win the rounds, he stops them, and he knows he's going to stop them. He did against Kovalev. He did against Billy Joe. He didn't get to Amir Khan. He was losing them, but he just took that one shot, and he got through. And he's the best in the world, and he's an all-round boxer. I do think he's beating Plant, but I don't think Plant's got the experience, and maybe it's just been us Brits, but I think Smith and Saunders were bigger fights than this.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think Canelo only loses if he moves up too big a weight. That's the only way I see Canelo losing a fight.
Or carries on past further than he should.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a point for a little bit of balance here. Obviously we saw a very, very fiery press conference, didn't we, the other week? Canelo pushed Plant, for those that haven't seen it, if you've been living under a rock. Plant then swung at Canelo, and Canelo slipped the shot. And that, for me, I think I said it to Ben last week, I think it's a little bit of a spoiler almost, because if Canelo's slipping his shots that he wasn't expecting in a boxing ring when you're on your guard all the time, I don't think Caleb Plant gets to him. Unless, and I did see one theory, and I think it's a bit of a stretch, but, for the sake of variation, we'll give it. There's been a lot of talk about bad blood with this fight. Canelo has, for anyone who's seen the All Access shows that Showtime do, he's talked about the fact that he feels almost disrespected by Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant said, well, he's used to everybody coming in, bowing down and effectively handing over the world title. I'm not going to do that. And there is the theory that, he's Plant in his head. Possibly. I don't think he is. I think Canelo's bulletproof when you see him. Yeah. But you never know, do you? Stranger things have happened, and we've seen some shocks in boxing the last couple of years, haven't we?
And it's an interesting theory for me, that is, because when you look at that press conference, for instance, that's not something Canelo would usually do. I believe it was due to Plant was shouting a lot at him, wasn't he? Trying to get a reaction. And you always wonder when you see stuff like that, it's a bit out of character. I get why some boxing fans are maybe thinking Plant is in his head. And Ben, as you said, it's going to be his first pay-per-view Plant in terms of, and it's a really big opponent. But sometimes these people step up on the big stages, and maybe just getting in Canelo's head early on, making it a personal feud. Maybe that could lead into something where Canelo's maybe not quite himself, especially in the early rounds. It'd be interesting to see if that does materialize.
Why not try something no one else has done? I don't think anyone else has tried to psychologically beat Canelo before the fight. So if it pays off, fair enough. I think if Plant wins, everyone will give him the respect he deserves.
Yeah.
But I think to get that respect, he has to go and beat Canelo. And Plant's good at fighting on the back foot. And I think if Plant can come in with something different, like Canelo, I've said already, he can do it all. But if Plant goes in with a different game plan to what he has before, confuse Canelo, he does stand a chance. He's got a belt. He's stopped people. But I'm not putting Plant down. I just can't big Canelo up enough. And that's probably where I am. And obviously, you've got to back the gingers, haven't you? There's not many of us out there. You've got to back us.
I mean, that's the best reason to back him from your perspective, Ben. Definitely. But no, it's an interesting one, isn't it, though? Because you wonder if Plant does put in a good performance as well. Is that just going to lead to some of the fights with the bigger UK names, of course, where there will be money in it as well? Or is it one of those fights where I presume he'll go into it fully believing he does so, but there's a lot of respect to be had, even if he was, to perhaps go the distance and put a real good fight for Canelo. So it's definitely going to be an interesting fight to, Josh, how much of a chance do you believe he has? And if he was to win it, how is he going to win it, Plant?
It's an outsider's chance, of course. I couldn't put a number on it. I'd just go with an outsider's chance. He's not, I think Canelo's bordering now on like Mayweather. It's in Vegas. You're not going to get the decision. So if you are going to do it, he needs to do it by knockout. 12 finishes in 21 wins. Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not great. He's not been in with the opposition. And let's not forget, Canelo has took punches off Kovalev, who, slightly past his best when Canelo fought him, but still a world champion. And was the most feared puncher on the planet for a time. Golovkin, same goes. He's took bigger punches than I think Caleb Plant can give out, if you like. And, I would say, I'm not slagging Plant off because I quite like him. But I also think, I agree with what you said, Ben. Callum Smith, Billy Joe, bigger fights. Now David Benavidez has supposedly got his act back together with missing weight and, he's going to campaign at super middle. He's a monster at that weight for me. I mean, I don't know how he makes it. It's similar to Callum Smith that we've talked about previously. Yeah. But and that's all South America. It's just a war, isn't it? That would potentially be available. Well, no, I'd give Plant an outsider's chance. But to be honest, I think that's purely because, there's been some shocks recently in boxing that are living in my head rent free. So,
see, I think you give Plant the outsider's chance, but there's going to be a rematch clause. And I think even if Plant wins, don't think he beats him twice. And I think that's where it comes in. You can correct me if you disagree, and I think you will disagree. You was on about the big fights if he wins, Scott. I think there's bigger fights if he loses. As stupid as it sounds, he loses this. I do think Canelo will then go to different weights again. But then you've got everyone fighting for the belts. And then Billy Joe, he can work his way back. And Eubank Jr., and I think there's names there.
We've got to disagree with that. Not to be difficult.
But difficult? Used to it?
Well,
you're still getting to it along too well in this preview, so I'm glad. Let me just sit back and rub my hands, carry on.
Well, Billy Joe, I don't think we'll see him fight again. The only fight he sort of talked about his big money fights. He's a 2-weight world champion and he fought, the pound for pound number one and came up short. He's admitted that. So, Caleb Plant, he's clearly not just going to come back to win a world title that he's already had. And he's not going to get motivated. The finances wouldn't be there for a Caleb Plant fight for Billy Joe. And Eubank Jr. specifically said now, I was never a super middleweight. I was campaigning there because the fights were available at the time, and obviously there was a lot of money to be made with the Super Series, which is obviously why he moved up originally. But he's at middleweight. And, for Eubank Jr. now, there's a lot of talk. Liam Williams in December, Golovkin and, Ben Shalom at Boxer and Golovkin's team have both said, talks are ongoing for a potential May fight next year. So I worry about the super middleweight division, if I'm being brutally honest, because I agree. I think Canelo wins. I think Canelo moves up. No one could argue with him.
No.
He's absolutely mopped up at super middleweight. I'd like to see him go to light heavyweight. And, there's even whispers of him, for the right fight, would he go up to cruiserweight and then become a 5-weight world champion? And I think that's what's driving Canelo at the minute. He's sort of done it all. Money's not a concern for him. It's about making history. That's the key word that I think we keep hearing from Canelo and his team, history. He wants to go and do it. And, I'm not suggesting he jumps in with a Lawrence Okolie or anything like that, because I think Okolie would be too big.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he'd knock it, but I just think I don't even think it stylistically it'd be a great fight. But, some of these other, I'm not going to mention any names because it would sound wrong, but some of these other cruiserweights that are potentially older, you could see a Kovalev situation when everyone said he was going to light heavy. Oh, that's ridiculous. And it worked well. I really genuinely believe, and not to make it an arse lick of Canelo, but I think in 30 years' time, we'll be talking about Canelo with the likes of Ali, Mayweather, Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray. That's genuinely how good I think he is.
He has the best resume of boxers today, for me anyway. And I think that
as well. That he does not get enough praise. In Britain, okay, COVID, Tyson Fury fought 3 times in 3 years.
Yeah.
I love the guy, but it's not enough. Joshua fought once last year, once this year. Canelo fought. This will be his 4th fight in 11 months. That's ridiculous.
And the thing is, the one was a mandatory, and then all the other 3 unbeaten world champions.
Exactly.
He's a belt collector. He wants the belts. He wants the history, and he's going to keep making it. And like Josh alluded to at the beginning of the video, the 4 weights he's won world titles at are ridiculous. No one else, in my opinion, can look at that and just it's easier at the smaller weights. But you looked at him against Kovalev. Kovalev was a giant compared to him, but he did not make a difference. He just went in there with the correct game plan. I think his team get credit, but they don't get enough credit because he's a perfect fighter, but they work well together, and he's always got a game plan. So far, it's always been right.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, we're speaking about him going down in history. I'm sure to do that, he's going to have to make sure he gets past Plant. And I think a lot of people will be backing him to do so. But guys, as always, please let us know in the comments who you are backing. If you are perhaps thinking Plant's going to cause an upset, let us know why as well. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Guys, any final thoughts?
Will we see you next video, Scott, or are you on holiday again?
No, I am back full time.
Full time. That's the first time then, isn't it?
Well, there we go. Yeah.
Scott, ignore him. He's got a bit of wind in it because there's Gingers fighting next weekend.
We're going to the top.
He's got that ginger power behind him at the moment.
Be a good week.
Sure. Guys, we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.